Hello everyone, I'm Melinda Jennison and welcome to this month's Brisbane Property Market Update, where I'm going to be summarising all of the latest data as well as our on-the-ground observations throughout the last 4 to 5 weeks. First of all, just a market summary. So listing volumes, according to CoreLogic, down still 23.6% compared to this time last year. Auction clearance rates throughout the 4 weeks of October sitting at 63.3%. Buyer activity, especially in those inner city or Brisbane City Council locations, is still very, very high. House values across the month jumped 1.4%. Unit values up 1.3%, and gross yields for all dwellings currently sitting at 4%. And we're going to get down to some more specific detail throughout this presentation. Now, this is a graph from SQM Research. Listing volumes are remaining stubbornly low. As you can see here, I've just highlighted with the top bar there, the long-term total listing volume sits somewhere around 30 to 32,000 for all of Greater Brisbane. And you can see highlighted by the second circle there, that in most recent years, we're sitting back down around 18,000 on average. Now, listings are still down about 23% today compared to this time last year as well. And you can see that small downward trend even in that section where listings are obviously a lot lower than the long-term trend. So this is very different to other capital city markets where listing volumes are much higher and more in line with the long-term average. So this is one reason why the Brisbane property market is still seeing that strong price growth at the same time as other major capital city markets such as Sydney and Melbourne are starting to see that price growth ease. When we look at PropTrack listing data as well, at a suburb level, we're definitely seeing some different trends. Warner, for example, over the last 12 months has experienced 92.3% growth in listing volumes, Redcliffe up 62.5%, and Newstead up 50%. At the same time, suburbs such as Callum Vale are down over the last 12 months by 33.3%, Hamilton down 32%, and Indooroopilly down 30%. So whilst we talk about all of Greater Brisbane being down 23% year on year, it's so important to understand what is happening at a local level on a per suburb basis, because this really tells us about the direction of the local market. Sales volumes are also still a lot lower in Brisbane today than they were 12 months ago, so down 17.1%. This is in part due to fewer properties becoming available for sale as it has been in the past. When we look at buyer demand, it is still strong around Brisbane. What I will say though is that auction clearance rates have been easing slightly over the last 3 months. So you can see in August they were at 68%, September 65.7%, and throughout October 63.3%. And this is Apollo Auctions data that is specific for Brisbane. But many properties, anecdotally, we are finding are selling prior to auction. So therefore the auction volume numbers that are heading all the way through to live auctions is shrinking slightly. Days on market, according to CoreLogic, is also declining month on month. So it is becoming a much faster moving market. Once again, similar to what we were experiencing in some areas to that post-COVID boom stage. Looking at dwelling values, according to CoreLogic, across the month of October, dwelling values increased in Brisbane 1.4%. That's actually second in terms of price growth for all capital city markets behind Perth. So Perth was actually sitting a little higher this month at 1.6%. Last month, you may have recalled, if you were watching last month's update, that we were second behind Adelaide. So Brisbane, Adelaide and Perth are dominating the top 3 positions in terms of price growth on a monthly basis at this point in time. Looking at quarterly growth for all dwellings, Brisbane's sitting at 3.8%. That's behind both Adelaide and behind Perth. So as I said, those top 3 markets are now dominating the growth on a month-by-month basis. According to PropTrack data, although we're measuring the same thing, and that is the change in median dwelling values, the regression equations used by both data houses will be slightly different. So PropTrack are showing 0.52% change month on month for Brisbane. So the same positive trend in growth has been shown across both data sets. When we look at the price segmentation, I have actually put up last month's graph along with this month's graph because we're starting to see some changes in different capital city markets, and I feel this is important to explain. So in the 3 months leading up to the end of September, which is the graph on the right, we've seen a change in the segments within the larger capital city markets of Sydney and Melbourne, whereby in the 3 months prior, up to the end of August, it was the top end of the market leading the growth. Now that top end has really pulled back in terms of price growth in those markets. However, Brisbane, you will see marked by the red box. We're not seeing that top end slow down at this point in time. We are seeing the bottom end speed up, which is now more in line with the growth at the top end of the market. These are the percentiles, so it's the top 25% of property values and the lowest 25% of property values. It is recorded for dwelling data, and we strongly believe also that the units that are part of that lower 25% dwelling data or price segmentation data will also be having an impact on that bottom end as well, because we're seeing enormous demand and strong growth in that segment of the market, especially in the inner city and blue chip locations. In other capital city markets such as Adelaide, Perth and Darwin, it is the bottom end of the market that is leading the growth, and that has been the case for a number of months. So again, Brisbane bucking the national trend in terms of which segments of the market are actually pushing prices higher. Looking at house values, again, according to CoreLogic, Brisbane is sitting at 1.4% price growth throughout the month of October. The median value for a house in Greater Brisbane now sitting at $860,465. It's going to be very difficult to buy a house within 10 kilometres of the Brisbane CBD for this price unless it has some impact. So please don't consider the median as an opportunity to buy close to the CBD. Greater Brisbane is a huge geographical location. That's something that must keep in people's mind when they are looking to buy in Brisbane. Brisbane, in terms of yearly growth, is sitting in the top 3 behind Sydney and also Perth. So Brisbane, Sydney and Perth dominating the growth of all capital city markets over the last year or the months throughout 2023. In terms of PropTrack data for housing in Brisbane, showing the same positive trend of growth throughout the month, 0.53% growth in the housing market according to PropTrack. Looking at unit values, so again in Brisbane, we've seen positive price in the unit segment of the market of 1.3% over the month of October. Units in the median value for a unit in Greater Brisbane now is sitting at $545,355. So this is a new record high once again. And Brisbane has had the strongest growth in the year-to-date figures for 2023 in the unit segment of the market, sitting at 9.8% growth, and that's behind all other capital city markets around Australia. So if you had a unit in Brisbane back in January, you would have received some really strong growth there, which is pretty good. Unit values according to PropTrack, once again, we see the same positive trend, up 0.48% for the month. So again, in line with the data supported by CoreLogic. Looking at the value changes in units and houses since January 2020. You see the dark lines there representing house value changes and the light blue lines representing unit value changes. Where the bars become below the centre line, that means we've had negative growth, and that was actually in the latter months of 2022. And you can see there since early this year, we've seen nothing but positive price growth in both the unit segment and the house segment of the market across Brisbane. And that's maintained fairly consistently, especially over the last 5 to 6 months. So at this stage, we don't expect to see much change in the magnitude of growth based on very tight listing numbers. When we look at vacancy rates in Brisbane, sitting consistently low, sitting at 1%, although last month they were sitting at 0.9%. So they've eased slightly month to month. But again, at a local level, at a suburb level, we are seeing some very tight vacancy rates in a lot of places, much lower than 1%, 0.5% in some of the suburbs that we're buying for our clients at the moment. Of course, the persistent low or shortage of rental properties especially since about late 2021, it's actually exerted upward pressure on rents. And here you can see weekly asking rents in Brisbane. We're tracking fairly consistently for many, many years until 2021, where we've seen that huge spike in rental price growth across the city in all segments of the market, both units and housing segments. So rent growth is actually still very strong, but it is slowing. So the magnitude of that growth is starting to slow down. So house rents up 6.1% over the last 12 months and unit rents up 13.9% over the last 12 months. So unit growth second behind Perth over the last 12 months. House growth or house rent growth dropped down to fifth place in terms of capital city market growth. And a few months ago, we were leading that price growth in both segments of the market, but in many areas, there's now affordability caps where tenants simply cannot afford to pay more to rent a property. So our market summary, Brisbane now is the second fastest capital city market, or the second fastest growing capital city market behind Perth when we look at that monthly data according to CoreLogic. Listing volumes do remain painstakingly low. We really need to see more supply come to the market to satisfy the demand that's sitting out there, because buyer depth is still very, very strong. We're still seeing multiple offers on most properties that we're looking at, unless the property is off market and there's a motivated seller. It's a very fast moving market. It is not uncommon yet again in Brisbane to see properties listed on a Wednesday or a Thursday and being under contract by the Saturday for private treaty sales. So days on market is extremely short, and you must be ready to purchase if you're looking at something that is listed with a first open home on a Saturday. We're seeing also a lot of those auction campaigns being shortened in terms of the time frame, but also a lot of properties are selling prior to auction. So don't assume that you can wait until auction day if you have interest in a property. It's important that the agent knows in case they do receive any offers prior. I will say not all of Brisbane is moving at the same rate, and that's obvious. Brisbane's not one property market, and I hope I've been able to explain that with some of that more suburb level data that we've talked about today. If you're wanting to get in touch with us, you can scan this QR code. This will take you to some free resources that help you understand more about what we do see here in Brisbane on the ground. It also enables you to get in touch with our expert team if you are wanting to work with professionals to assist you on your property buying journey in Brisbane. Thank you so much for your time. I'm Melinda Jennison. I look forward to bringing you another update next month. Bye for now.